Welcome to the Spectators Podcast. Here are your hosts, Corey and Jeff.
Welcome, spectators, to episode 42 of the Spectators Podcast. My name is Jeff, and to my mic adjacent, wearing a fantastic hat, is Corey. How are you, my friend?
Well, I'm good. It's been a while since we recorded, and I just want to share my thank you for the hat, as it was a early birthday present from you. My birthday had just passed this last week, so thank you again. I appreciate it, and I'm excited to have this hat.
Absolutely. So I guess since you're wearing that hat, I guess the question is,
what do you want to talk about? I don't know. I mean, there's a few different things going on. A little bit of nothing and a little bit of a lot at the same time. It's been a weird build up as we're going to WrestleMania, but like Cody Rhodes, let's give a few options here. What do you guys want to talk about? Well, do you want to talk about WrestleMania? Do you want to talk about the Bloodline? Do you want to talk about Dominic Mysterio? Do you want to talk about Rey Mysterio's Hall of Fame induction? Where do we start? I mean, I think seeing how we are a night away from Monday Night Raw and Roman finally being on Monday Night Raw for the first time in quite some time, I think let's talk about the Bloodline and Cody Rhodes mixture now that we're starting to see them on TV together. What do you think about how everything's been going over the last, say, 2-3 weeks or so?
Yeah, it's been incredibly slow, right? And H struggled with that after Survivor Series, when you had the long month and a half between Survivor Series and Royal Rumble. There just wasn't a ton of build for Royal Rumble. Most of the excitement for it was actually more the internet wrestling community rumors than actual build for the Royal Rumble, because you had the confusing I'm declaring and I'm not, and we have a qualifying match,
yeah,
right, and just listening to stuff and reading, it seems like H, when he was doing Black and Gold NXT, that was kind of his MO, is that he'd do okay TV and then his pay-per-views were amazing, which if you kind of look at his track record so far, it seems to be pretty accurate, right? For the most part, outside of the Bloodline storyline, which has been going before he took over, he's obviously, you got to give him credit for letting it be amplified, but it's staying there, right? And I think we finally hit some actual excitement, right? They're starting to, I think, do that build, and you do, when Elimination Chamber ended, you had almost 2 months, right? So you can't go too quickly, because then if you go too quickly, then what are you going to tell for the last 2 weeks, right? So I guess I prefer it this way, where they're just kind of dragging their feet and then they turn the fire up, because it feels like SmackDown, they really kind of turn the fire up on at least the Bloodline, and then of course, Rey and Dom has been sort of back and forth, but they turn it up a tiny little bit. There's still more to go there, and of course you had Rhea and Charlotte also turn their feet up a little more. So it seems like they're starting to really go for it. They have failed, in my opinion, though, speaking of Bloodline and Cody, to convince me that Cody's going to beat Roman. I'm still 50-50 on it. I don't necessarily know if it's going to happen. I don't know. They think they have a good story for Cody, don't get me wrong, but it's making me hard to believe this isn't the same thing where they build someone up great, or big, just for Roman to knock them down. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So
it's kind of the track record, right? Like you're saying.
Yeah, and I can see the Usos losing for sure, but I'm still not 100% convinced that Roman is losing to Cody at this time. What do you think?
I kind of flip-flop on this a little bit. Pretty much every time I watch a Raw and then I watch a SmackDown, by the end of the week, I pretty much flip-flop.
And I'm the same.
And I think it's an interesting situation. I want to take a back step for one moment and just think about basically the build up from Survivor Series to WrestleMania, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a bit of a miss here. I think they made a bit of a mistake this year with timing, build up, structure, and I felt like there was already a bit of miss of build up from H's perspective going into Royal Rumble. I'm feeling it a lot again going into WrestleMania, and WrestleMania being the biggest show of the year. It puts us in a really awkward spot, honestly, and you know, I think the biggest miss was you already had a delay in December, and that's typical. It's understandable. You know, you don't want the wrestlers working during Christmas time and stuff like that. I get it. But, you know, I think their biggest miss was not having a pay-per-view in March. To have some sort of...
In between.
It doesn't even have to be a massive show. It could be a 3-hour, 4-hour quick show, lots of matches, showcase some people, maybe even build up some new feuds on that pay-per-view towards WrestleMania. Because the way that I look at it, you've got a lot of the same going into WrestleMania. A lot of these long, really long drawn stories, and you know, we heard the rumors, we heard everything about Triple H going into this position as creative. We had heard, you know, the guy's a long-term storyteller. Long-term is not the word for it. This guy draws everything out immensely long, and I think it is hurting some storylines, and we'll get to that.
Like a
Bray and a few others, but we'll get to that. But you know, it's hard because you have very fickle fans in WWE that
AEW too, as I'm
I think wrestling fans in general are really fickle. You know, you think about when you have an opportunity and you have somebody who's hot at the time and they're really getting a big pop, that might not last long, right? You know, that Sami Zayn pop going into Elimination Chamber in Montreal was just crazy. And you know,
have you ever seen anything like that in your time watching WWE?
You know, that was as big a pop as I've ever seen.
Like, it's 5 straight minutes of cheering. I've never seen that before. You know, not even sports. I guess maybe when someone wins Stanley Cup, but like really,
not even really. Like, honestly, not even that much of a forward drive. You know, I remember seeing things like that with, you know, maybe Stone Cold Steve Austin, maybe The Rock, but I mean, you're putting it up to that level, like those talent. That's crazy that he got that much. And again, it was because he was, you know, in and going to Montreal, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, I mean, yeah, it's crazy. Like, they haven't had that pop from anyone for a significant amount of time. And I just feel that they're putting themselves in a position where, you know, they have opportunities to really captivate the crowd, and they're losing those opportunities. And when they draw on stories too long, you lose interest. Again, with fickle fans, how do you expect to keep interest on a storyline when you go in a different direction, or your direction takes too long for fans? Short attention span, right? People have a short attention span these days. They want something that's quick, and when they want somebody to win, they want someone to win, right? They don't want to backlog, and then not only that, but you have someone lose, and then you just draw back, so you take a step back. And where I mean is, like, in that Sami Zayn situation, he lost the Elimination Chamber. Fine, you know, it is what it is. But what did they do? They took a step back again, and then Kevin Owens started getting involved with the Bloodline. And it's like, we were already there a month ago. We were already there at Royal Rumble, and now we're getting him involved with Roman and the Bloodline and all this. And it's like, we've seen this many times, and I just feel like it was a step back. And then it took a long time for this past Friday night for them to somewhat kind of reconcile. And now it looks like we those rumors are coming true, and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are probably going to go after the Usos. That's what it's looking like now. But for fickle fans, I mean, there was quite a few weeks I was going back and forth with you saying, like, I don't know if this is actually going to happen. These guys are going to face off against Bloodline, just because it was so long and so drawn out. But I in terms of Cody, I mean, again, I have a really hard time trying to make a decision here, and I go back and forth probably on a weekly basis, if not twice a week. Every time I see, it's almost like when I see Raw, I'm like, yeah, he's gonna win, and then I see SmackDown, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Is that good though? You know what I mean? Like, because I think we, at least since I've been watching for almost a year now, believe it or not, it's like the only person that I really thought was legitimate to beat him was Drew McIntyre, right? Yeah. And that was because it was in Cardiff, right? It was, you know, a home, and I think they did a decent enough job building him up, right? And he didn't end up winning. And like, so that's why, like, this time around, I'm feeling the same, but to me, it made sense for Roman to win, especially because they brought in Solo, right? And like the Bloodline story still had lots of legs, right? Where now the only reason I really see them keeping Roman as champion is because he's so close to 1,000 days, right? And if he's the only champion, like you can sort of like, you know, as we've been talking about, you can sort of long-term story tell the end of the Bloodline, right? Because, you know, the Usos don't have the tag belts, right? Like I can see that angle, but like to me, again, I think we're coming up against an opportunity where they, you know, if you're gonna have Roman lose, like I think now is the time, right? Because you're building up this baby face to, from what I can gather, fans are saying WWE hasn't had a baby face like Cody Rhodes in a long time. And you can put the belts on him, right? And you know, it's a, you know, because when you want Roman to lose, you want it to be in a fantastic way, right? So why not have it against a guy like Cody, who has a very legitimate storyline to win the championships, right? And that's the thing too, is like Roman's a part-timer and he's still a main eventer. There's no reason why he can't get the belts back, a belt back, not both. Please, for the love of God, end this madness, because like that's the biggest thing that's bugged me out of all of this, is that this was a mess that was created by unifying the belts last year, right? You could have, like, if you actually properly just had Roman drop the WWE title at some point in a ladder match or something, then you could have had him continue to have the belt, which I'm fine with. I'm fine with him having the Universal Championship, right? Like he is a good, like he is a draw, right? There's lots of reasons to keep him as champion, but you can't block a guy like Cody being champion, right? Because like he also is probably as deserving as, in my opinion, Roman to be champion, right? So like I guess I asked the question, is that good? I think it's good that we're back and forth, because you don't want to, you know, surefire no. Like, you know, when it came to Royal Rumble, it wasn't about Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns. It was about the after the match, right? Like we all knew Roman was winning, right? And winning, yeah. For the most part, you knew Sami wasn't going to beat Roman, right? In Montreal, right? The story was great. The build was great.
The only hope you had at that point was, do they possibly give it to him in his hometown? And that was about it, really.
Right. And, you know, give credit, like they built up Sami enough where he got that kind of pop. So you got to give credit where credit's due, right? Mm-hmm. That means they built him up to get that kind of pop in Montreal. Because I'm sure like he would have got a good pop in Montreal, but he wouldn't have got that level of pop without him being, you know, inserted into the storyline, right? And doing the work he did, right? He got the spotlight. So good on him, and good on WWE for recognizing the story and going from there. But for me, like, I understand why WWE wants to keep Roman as champion potentially, but I think it's a missed opportunity to give Cody the belts, because then you can start to correct the mess, which has now been sort of noted that WWE do want to split these belts by SummerSlam, right? So I can't see you doing it with Roman because he's part-time. Like you put the belts on Cody, you put him over. Roman is over, right? Like him losing is not going to affect him being over. There's a massive fan base for him. There are tons of fans who want to see him win at WrestleMania, mm-hmm. right? Despite even really knowing that this storyline needs, like, we all need to move on from the bloodline having all the gold, right? But there's still that part of me that goes, I don't know if WWE is quite ready to have Roman without a belt.
I've got a few counterpoints, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here. So I personally liked the idea of WrestleMania 39. We're 30. Wait, are we 40?
Yeah, 39.
This one's 39. Okay, so let's go back a year. So I liked WrestleMania 38. I did like the idea of that greatest match of all time. I did like the idea of the unification of the belts. I was all for that. Albeit I wanted Brock Lesnar to win the belts at the time. I thought he was... I looked at that match, and I looked at Brock Lesnar as the guy. I thought Lesnar was the one who should have won both belts. Hear me out. I know all the bitchy Roman fans across the world right now, because I know there's a lot of people who really do want to see this 1,000 streak. I thought Brock was the right guy to do it at the time, because Brock, you know, is going to be the guy. And I've seen this over the last couple of years, and I really see it with him now, where he has an idea and an insight that he's kind of going into a different role in his career. He's going into a role where he's becoming more of somewhat of a mentor. He's trying to like talk to people backstage. He's clearly putting people over now, and you see that he put Roman over, etc., etc. But
Lashley.
I know Brock did not have any intention, if he won both those belts, that he was going to hold on to those belts for a year. That was not that wasn't going to happen, and that's why at the time I was happy that if he won the belts, because Roman had already held that Universal title for a year. He had already had it for a year at that point, almost.
2 years, wouldn't it have been?
I think about a year.
It was 2 years at Clash. Sorry, it's my fault.
So I thought, Brock being in that situation, I thought it would be great. He could pull the title off Roman. Roman could have easily won it back. Brock would have had the WWE title. Potentially he even pulled the Universal title off of Roman, and maybe somebody else on SmackDown won it. Perhaps Drew. Perhaps Drew could actually beat Brock with crowd and with fans in there in the arena. Brock could lose the title to anyone on Raw, etc., etc. I thought from a business standpoint, long term, they would have made more sense. However, they didn't go that route, and they didn't have the chance to put anyone over in the storyline except for, a couple of lucky situations, right? You look at the track record Roman's had since WrestleMania. He fought Brock at SummerSlam. Lost. Brock lost, right? Roman kept the titles, etc., etc. Moved on, and Roman's basically beat everyone in his path. He hasn't really put anybody over. He hasn't made anybody look good. He hasn't really made anybody do well, except for himself.
I would say Logan Paul. Logan
Paul. But Logan again. Right? What I'm thinking of is like these lucky draws, right? Like Logan Paul came in, and like, do you think anyone thought he would be ready to face Roman Reigns on his third match? No, none of us did, right? And then Sami Zayn was another one. They got lucky. The storyline built up. Fans got behind him, and we got lucky. But he didn't put Drew over. He didn't put Brock over. He didn't make anyone really...
No, Drew really got sewered after that, actually.
Look good. No one ever really came out of that better off than they went in. Do you know what I mean? And then I look at a guy like Kevin Owens, and his credibility is down the drain now. He's lost to Roman 3 times. All 3 title matches he had against Roman, he's lost. And yes,
that's why I said in the tag division.
It's exactly. So now you got a guy who should be a headliner for you. He should be a top star for you, and he's down in the tag division, and it sucks. So if we put the shoe on the other foot, Brock would have put people over, and we would have had Brock probably. We're not talking about Brock back in 2015 and 2016 when he just dominated and conquered everybody. We're talking about a different Brock.
Was that Kofi Mania? Or just that when he squashed Kofi?
Yeah, exactly. And
sad moment.
You know what? I look at Brock and Lashley, and that was a pretty decent feud for 2 big guys who don't move the most agile. And Lashley came out of that, I think, looking better than he did previously going into that. His character development was better, so that's what I mean. And I'm looking at that, and I actually legitimately feel like Brock's going to put over Omos, and that's why we're seeing him fight Omos at WrestleMania. But we don't need to talk about that right now. Where I'm coming from is that side. I thought, it wasn't the right thing at the time. But they know that Roman is a stand-up guy, and they put the titles on him prior to him switching to this part-time contract. He then switched to a part-time contract, unfortunately, and that put us all in a bad spot because we don't see our champion every week. We don't see our champion
especially on Raw.
We don't see. We saw Roman on Raw 3 times, I think, in the last year, 3 or 4 times, maybe something like that.
Sounds about right. Yep.
Since he won that title, that's like, so you have to run Raw with a U.S. title, like. I always look at the U.S. title as almost like a crappier title version of the Intercontinental title too. So
yeah, I mean, and they've used it well for theory, but like it's a mid-card title, right? Like that's the thing, and that's why like I think WWE needs to give it to Cody, right? You know,
that's where I was going to. That's exactly where I was going.
And there's the argument that he just came back and he won number 30 at the Royal Rumble. I don't really care. Like, and you know, the rhetoric that the fans were going to turn on him, like, you know, it's all been. I don't agree with it, right? Like, I think he has done a tremendous job coming back. I think every promo he does equals Roman, right? He's obviously WWE obviously sees him as a commodity. He's doing media like no tomorrow. Like he's on podcasts everywhere. He's doing all these media. I'm sure he'll do a bunch of media junkets before WrestleMania, right? He's got the look as a pure baby face, right? I almost feel like they need to put it on him, right? Like if they want to move forward with the WWE in a good way, like they really need to put the belts on Cody, right? Because you can tell the bloodline story without the belts, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's almost that time to do that, right? Because the tag divisions also suffered, right? You've had the belts on the Usos for 600 days, the SmackDown title, right? And then they've had great matches, don't get me wrong. But now these unified belts, like you have all these great tag teams, Street Profits, right? But like, you know, the Viking Raiders, the Legado, like I'm trying to think, Imperium, right? Like there's so many good tag teams, right? I mean, FTR might be coming to the WWE, right? Like they're rumored they're coming too. Right? You need to have the belts split for one, and you need to have it like where they're able to be lost, right? They've just been on these guys, the Usos, who just whoever you build up, they're just going to lose, right? And that's a problem, right? And that's the same thing with Roman and the belts, right? Like you just can't keep constantly building up these talents to have them lose.
Them. Yeah.
Right? It doesn't make sense.
Let's give a scenario. Roman does win at WrestleMania. Holds the title. He passes his 1,000 days, like I know a lot of Roman fans
love the eye roll you just gave.
I think I don't know if you agree with me here. What Roman's done over the last 2 years in the modern day of wrestling, I feel like it puts him in a position where he's kind of solidified as one of the best that's ever done it. And with that, whether he loses the title in 915 days, 975 days, whatever, or 1,000 days, doesn't really change what he did. I don't believe it. It takes any credibility away from him.
No, I
don't think giving him 1,000 days makes it better in any way at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because whoever's the next champion is not going to hit 900 days. It's not happening.
Well, all he has to do is main event one more WrestleMania, and he'll have the most main events in WrestleMania in WWE history.
You're talking about Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker.
And that's the thing too. All you have to do is look at the bloodline story, right? Like, yes, there was the Universal Championship in it, but it was never about that.
No,
it was about him unifying his family, and then you brought Sami Zayn into the whole thing, right? Like, it was never really like it was about the belts. Like at one point, especially like before Zayn and Sokoa was in there, it was about, you know, all the gold and stuff. But that's like there was almost like a point where like it wasn't about the belts anymore. It was about the story, right? And that's why like you need to get the belts off of the bloodline so you can continue to tell that story, right? Because the collapse of the bloodline is equally as an interesting story as continuing this whole shebang, right? And it's time to see belts on other talent, right? Like you've got a whole tag division that I think Triple H wants to build up. You've got, you know, tons of talent that need to have a shot at the title, right? That without the knowledge and they know they're going to lose, right? Like Because like you have guys like LA Knight, for example, who at some point probably should win a world title, right? Even Theory, right? Theory probably at some point needs to win a world title, right?
Mhm.
If you keep it on Roman, like there's no chance for those guys to ever get anywhere close to it.
The biggest thing is, if you keep it on Roman, let's say he does win at WrestleMania, you keep it on Roman, where do you go next?
Yeah, where do you start? Where do you stop?
Where do you even go next? Because at this point, who has enough credibility to beat him? Because right now, like Cody's believable to beat him. So in my opinion, you either go back to your basket of those who've already faced him.
He's already beaten them, yeah.
And he's already beaten them, so it's not that credible because he's already beaten them. Or you really have to build somebody up in a quick way. Like you got to take a Theory, you got to take an LA Knight or like a Bray Wyatt, and you got to build them up really quickly to be able to pass and beat Roman. Otherwise, what other pool of talent do you have? But the problem with what's going on with Triple H is exactly this. So it's exactly what we've talked about. The Universal title, the WWE title, they're stuck on Roman. The tag team titles, they're stuck on the Bloodline. The IC title, it's stuck on Gunther. The women's title, it's stuck on Bianca. He's doing this across the entire board. He's doing this all the way down, right? You're suffering so much talent by doing this, right? Like great, you know, Bianca's been a great champion, but we talked about this in our last episode. We talked about this in previous episodes. It's getting stale, right? It's getting a little stale. You know, same with Gunther. Like he comes out and he's been great. He's really, I think he's really built up the Intercontinental title again. It's been really fun to see what he's doing, but it also is getting a little stale as well. Like, you know, I'd love to see that title. I want to see him face adversity. Because I want to see him lose the title and try to get it back. But I also wouldn't mind seeing Gunther go after a U.S. title now. Let's see him go after a U.S. title. Let's see Imperium get a tag title. Like something like that. I want to see something different. I want to see some mix. It's like, it's basically like we've been having bran cookies and I'm ready to throw some chocolate chips in. I'm ready to see something different. I'm ready to get some sugar.
I agree.
I'm ready to get something that's a little bit exciting again and compelling to watch. Because we saw a product that has become very lackluster in terms of surprises anymore. And like, this is why we've seen so many rumors. This is why we see so much, you know, like talk about, oh, this is probably going to happen. That's why you have a lot of people who are like, you know, I don't even think, this is why even we're saying, I don't know if Cody's going to win. And that's a bad state to be in, right? That's not a good state to be in. Where you look at the opposing competition, right? That moves. The titles move around. The titles get shifted, and not only that, but WWE, like NXT, Mandy Rose held the title for a really long time. Braun Breaker's holding the title for a really long time. The only way that they had the tag team champions switch for a little while was they brought New Day in to win the titles. Like they're doing things out of the ordinary there that they had to do. Finn Balor had to come down for a little while a couple of years ago because, you know, Triple H, I think he just gets into these like, oh, you know, I think I gotta see people kind of holding the title for a long time, and I feel like what I'm seeing a lot of is he held the title for a while as a world heavyweight champion. He's seeing that work as his own, and he's trying to do it again. Shawn Michaels, you look at Shawn Michaels, what he's doing in NXT. You know, a lot of things that he's doing lately, and a lot of things that he's trying to make work, are similar stories to what he did in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, with Roxanne Perez, that's one of the good examples.
So I just feel like they're trying to reinvigorate fans by bringing in some nostalgia, but they're also trying to just recreate something, which you got a roster with Austin freaking Theory. Like, I'm sorry, but like you got guys on your roster and girls on your roster that are only 25 years old, 26 years old. Utilize that talent. Utilize that talent. I mean, to be fair, he's facing
another
guy too.
Cena, right? So
he's getting something. But I mean, I look at LA Knight too, right? Like LA Knight's really cool. He's really fun. He's bringing in kind of a different taste to WWE. He's not getting any younger. He's not as young as
Theory. He's 40, isn't he?
He's like 40. But give the guy a chance, right? I want to see an Intercontinental Championship on this guy. I want to see a U.S. title on this guy, right? Like you said, maybe he'll win a world title one day. Maybe, I don't know. But I want to see something on him. Stop burying guys.
Yeah.
Like, I look at LA Knight, he's been buried over and over again now. And then I look at Elias, he's been buried over and over and over again. Like, these guys keep getting buried by WWE.
Yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
It's frustrating. And then you got the Bray phenomenon. So we'll get into that. There's an interesting story. Like, guy comes in, huge ovation, huge welcoming back to the WWE. We were compelled. Everyone was excited for him to be in. There were months on end where we were like, oh, Bray's gonna come, and he didn't. Bray's gonna come, and he never did, and then finally,
Hell in a Cell that everyone thought he was coming. It didn't happen.
And then finally he comes, and it was what a reaction from the fans, what a reaction from Bray, the emotions from both sides, and then what do? You take a really long time for him to have his first match. He has his first match, and then you put him in this creative turmoil of cycling back to kind of doing nothing. He's just talking. He's not wrestling. He's not even getting his own creativity anymore, I feel like. And he's burnt out. And he's got medical issues now, which they won't disclose. I feel like he's at that point where he was last year. He's getting creative burnout again.
Well, and I wonder how much I know Vince isn't in creative, but I do wonder how much Vince being around, because the same thing with Pat McAfee, right? Like, it's just Vince has come back and you've seen some of these things, right? Because it is a very curious stage, and I do wonder how much also with Bray, how much of unforeseen circumstances has affected it, because I imagine Alexa Bliss was going to be a part of that brand, but she's on some sort of break or hiatus, even though she denies it. She's not been around since Royal Rumble. I think the same
thing we're seeing with her. We're seeing a lot of you think about Alexa Bliss's trajectory and where Bray was. You could argue they went through a very similar situation. Yeah. She returned. A lot of people were hyped up about it. Wow, I didn't expect her to return. Came back, had some great matches, won the tag titles, had a shot at the women's title, and then
got squashed in 7-minute match.
Got squashed. And then you have an idea that she's going to be part of this Bray Wyatt thing, and it was pretty clear that was going to happen. So there was obviously some direction for her, but I think the direction was lacking creativity because it was drawn out too long. Like, we don't even know who Uncle Howdy is. We don't know who the rest of the Wyatt Six are. We don't know. And in reality, we weren't anywhere close. We weren't anywhere close to finding out who the rest of the people are. They've drawn it out way too long. Now, I would suspect that Alexa is probably taking some mental time as well. She's probably taking some time because creatively, she doesn't agree with the storyline. I know she wants to work with Bray, but I think they both want to do bigger and better things. I mean, they're not on the mid card. They're not on the tag. They're not on the faction. They're just kind of sitting there on the roster. It's a weird situation for them, and I would be frustrated if I was them too.
It was a strange deterioration, right? Because I remember when, like you said, when it came, everyone was very excited. This whole idea of a Wyatt Six, it was just exciting, and then there was also, what was it, just before Elimination Chamber? No, wait, Royal Rumble. There was oh, it's going to be Bray versus Uncle Howdy, right? And then it just seemed like right for Royal Rumble, I don't know what happened. Maybe there was just they took the script and just
they flipped
ripped it up and tried just anything.
Well, don't you think it's weird too? Don't you think it's really weird? You anticipated some build up for Uncle Howdy, for other Wyatt Six members, and then all of a sudden Bray comes out and challenges the winner to the Brock and Lashley match. And then, was kind of into it with Lashley for a little bit until he went on leave. And it just seems like an odd direction. Stylistically, Lashley and Bray, or Brock and Bray, doesn't make sense to me. It's not a guy I want to see.
Or even Lashley really isn't a guy you'd think would be okay with the Supernatural, right? LA Knight made sense because he's like the comparison said, he was this kind of this cocky heel who doesn't really care, right? So that fits with sort of a horror spooky thing, right? Whereas Lashley, I don't, or Lesnar for that matter, I can't see I mean, Brock said no, as has been noted that they said, "Hey, you want to work with Bray?" He was like, "No." I don't blame him. So yeah, it's a mysterious one, and it's just one of those ones you don't know. And who knows, it might end in his release again, right? Like I don't know how long of a contract he signed again with the WWE. Or maybe he's just taking a bit of a break till after WrestleMania. Apparently, there's going to be a draft. I don't know. Maybe you send him to Raw and revamp some stuff. I don't know. It'll be very interesting because you wouldn't think that the idea of Bray Wyatt not being at WrestleMania was even a thought, especially after his return. Extreme Rules are like, no, like I can't wait for his WrestleMania match. Now he might not even be there.
He probably won't. But I don't know if you saw it on Friday night on the 17th. There was a little hint that Bray is still around. When LA Knight was speaking to what's her name? I believe it's Kayla Braxton, the one in the back. He's having an interview with her right before he went over to Ray. When he went over to Ray and he said the whole thing. If you look, try to find the picture online.
I have seen it.
On the left side, Bray's logo is right behind LA Knight,
which is odd. Like why?
Which is odd because. Why?
They're done with their feud.
Why would you want to build up that feud? Because, I mean, I know I can speak for many people when we said the feud was okay, but the match was crap.
Also, like, didn't LA Knight get imploded by Uncle Howdy, and then they just seemed to sort of ignored the fact that Uncle Howdy took him through a table with explosions.
There was an explosion, and LA Knight was on SmackDown the next week.
Yeah, but no, they did give it a week break. But even then, it was just like, okay, so you basically killed this guy essentially, and it seems like everyone's just kind of forgetting that ever happened.
This is the WWE we're speaking about. If you do remember, I don't know if you remember this timeline, but Vince McMahon went into his limousine back in 2006 or 2005.
Right, yes.
It exploded, and then Vince McMahon was on TV 2 weeks later. So I mean, it's not a weird occurrence, but definitely my biggest question is why you want to tease the idea of doing LA Knight and Bray Wyatt again. It just doesn't make sense to me right now.
The whole Bray Wyatt thing has been interesting.
Unless LA Knight's going to be part of the Wyatt Six, but again, I mean,
no, he needs to be on his own. He's too charismatic to be on his own, and I hope that at some point he gets into the IC title reign at some point after Mania, because I think he deserves some sort of belt on him.
Agree.
Right?
Definitely.
So I think the only more interested one I'm like. The thing I'm most interested in is the Ray and Dom.
Yeah, I'm actually really intrigued by this.
See, this is one of the long-term storytelling pieces that actually I think has worked out, because you had the whole thing with Judgment Day, and then of course Ray was traded to SmackDown for Baron Corbin, which that was interesting storyline. Although I am enjoying Corbin as this bum type character, but
he's getting back to that. Yep.
Yeah, bum ass Corbin. But yeah, so Ray moves. They're separated for a while, and then was it Royal Rumble? They finally got back together a little bit, and then they sort of really accelerated this story to a point where the last promo they did together was actually quite good.
Yeah.
It was some good feels.
You're actually feeling emotions on both sides too this time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Dom's not talking about getting an M series, or not an M series BMW.
You got me a BMW. It wasn't even an M series.
That was good. That's some good heel work there. But yeah, no, it's making me really interested about the match they're gonna have at WrestleMania, and also how is Dom gonna convince him? The ideas are that he'll bring in his mom or his sister. And the sort of force Ray's hand maybe into saying yes, right? Or he has to do. It seems like he has to do something unbelievable to get Ray to finally say yes, right? Because what else can Dom do, right? She called him everything under the sun, and Ray is still saying no, right? So you wonder, because I don't want it to be I don't want it to be where they do some sort of stunt at his ceremony. I want the ceremony to be a ceremony. I don't want them to do any sort of work for him to say yes at WrestleMania the next night or for the Sunday night. I'd like to have them to have the match confirmed before that. So I'm just kind of wondering how they're going to get Ray to say yes. And I wonder if you bring in Ray's mom or Ray's sister. Dom's mom or Dom's sister, to sort of force Ray's hand into saying yes.
I mean, the way that I look at it, it would have been great to see Dom induct his father into the Hall of Fame. We know that's not going to happen because the way that they wrote the storyline. Sorry?
It's Conan. I don't know how to Konnan. I don't know who that
Conan,
wrestler.
I guess. Yeah, he's the one who's inducting him, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been great to see Dom. Like, let's be honest, it would have been fantastic to see him do it. But that's not going to happen based on the storyline. And you know, I've wanted to see these guys go at it for a long time. But I actually really wanted it to be at WrestleMania. I didn't want it to be anywhere else. And I think the reason why this long-term storytelling worked for this particular situation is because they took a break from it. You know, we saw a little bit. Yeah. Ray left. Ray was kind of doing his own thing. Ray had an IC title shot. Like, there was a couple of things that went on, and we really didn't see them together. Then Dom was having like great character work with Judgment Day, and he was really improving. I think he's improved himself on the mic. He's gotten better in the ring. But like, you look back, like, they had a break. They separated, and then that feud that was still around never really went anywhere. And now that Rhea's on SmackDown. And let's face it, Rhea's a SmackDown superstar now. That's just how it is, right?
Oh yeah. They're showcasing her like she's gonna win. Like, let's be honest. I think it was not this last SmackDown, but the SmackDown before. Someone tracked the amount of time each person was on SmackDown. Rhea had the most time on TV that week. Like, you were so showcasing this woman.
Rhea had the most time on TV, and Dom probably had the second most time on TV. You know, and Rhea's been significantly getting less time on Raw. Let's face it. Like, she's been on Raw for like a little bit, really. Judgment Day, right? And you know, I think we can see the direction that they're going in, right? I want to say that, I mean, that's why it worked, and we're seeing that break in history in that time is working really well now. We're seeing again them kind of build on that foundation that they were working on previously, and they're killing it. They're honestly doing great work together.
Well, and it helped, actually, to be honest, that even Cross with a little feud with Ray too. Like, he kept it going because Cross kept saying, like, you know, you're basically a deadbeat dad.
Yep.
I know folks don't like Cross, but I like, even though outside the matches, I think were good.
It's okay. Yeah.
The promos they did, I think, were really good. I actually liked like it was
it
more
built up the story on the side. Yeah.
It was a good little thing for Cross. Like, that was where I think Cross does well. They're still a little challenged with Cross, but
we'll see how he does over the next little while. I think he'll get some more opportunities here and there, and but the way that I can foresee this match going with Ray and Dom, and the only way I actually think it's gonna work is the last string of the match. I think this whole induction thing is really the WWE giving us the sign that Ray is finished. His career is over.
He's winding down. Yeah.
He's winding down. He's talked about this for a while, that he's been winding down. So when I heard he was going into Hall of Fame, I'm like, okay, well, WrestleMania is probably going to be his last match. If that's the case, and the way that I think it should happen, Ray and Dom will face off. Dom will likely win, but Dom will somehow in that match flip and turn back to a face because he respects his father and he respects working for his father. Those memories of his dad and what he taught him in the ring and everything, and Dom's gonna realize he wants to continue that legacy. At the end of the match, Ray will remove his mask and he'll hand it to Dom.
Yeah, it could be even like a post-match beatdown, and he stops them and says, "You know what? Yeah."
Something like that, and then Dom will take that mask, and I think Dom's gonna start wearing the mask after the WrestleMania time. And I think that because I see that Judgment Day's days are kind of finalized now. I don't see this faction really moving forward much anymore.
With Rhea being champion, and the whole Ray and Dom situation, like, if it makes sense, because then what do you do with Damian and Finn, right?
I'd rather see them separate, and
because Finn's gonna do Demon Finn Balor. I don't know how that actually works in storyline, because I know when he used it before, it was more like a superpower. Like, he sort of like takes a sensu bean or something. I don't know.
Well, he becomes better than Prince Finn Balor, right? He's more he's just more focused, really.
It's like an upgrade or something, whatever you want to call it.
It's cool though. I love when he comes out as Demon King. I think it's a nice touch to everything. I think this is the nice last hurrah we're gonna see with him and Edge. This is gonna be Edge's last WrestleMania, so it's got to be big, right? Ultimately, I think Finn comes out on top on this one.
I do too. Yeah, I do too. But it does like I do think Judgment Day. It like they might stick around a little longer because I think they like him. They like them on SmackDown. I like them on SmackDown too because we've gotten some cool mixed tag and 3-person tag with Legato. I've enjoyed that, and I wish we had more of that on Raw. But there's just no factions on Raw. So I think like WWE needs more factions.
They do.
Right? Like, I mean, the only faction on Raw outside Judgment Day is Damage Control. Could be wrong on that. I guess the OC, but
another team who held on to the titles too long was Damage Control. It was getting a little stale, so glad they lost the titles.
I just think they Lita and Becky might not even defend it at WrestleMania.
Yeah, they might lose it in the next couple weeks, I heard.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because they said there's more twists and turns coming to that storyline. So I'm curious what that actually looks like. But yeah, no. So we'll see what happens with Judgment Day. I'm really curious about that. Like, I'm pretty sure Rhea's winning.
The big question I have is with Judgment Day and Rhea and Dom, and this whole storyline that's been going on for a long time is: do Rhea and Dom still align themselves after Rhea wins the title? If Dom and Rhea stay, because I do see Rhea going face as well, because I think ultimately Charlotte plays a better heel, and I think she's going to do a heel turn at WrestleMania, and I think Rhea's going to turn face. I do believe that that's the case. So I wonder if they do both go face, do they continue sort of their aligning relationship there? I
don't know if you do Rhea face yet because she's been dominant as a heel. Maybe you do it down the line because it's actually hard to picture her as a face right now because she's been slaying such a good heel. I do agree Charlotte needs to be a heel. I don't know what this whole face run is, but it is what it is. But yeah, like it'll be good when Charlotte has the title off her. Because obviously I think she just kind of got it to get the belt off of Ronda.
Yeah, it really was the reason. Yeah.
And Ronda's injured, so we don't even know if I think we'll see her at Mania.
And let's be honest, a Rhea versus Charlotte match is a lot better to look forward to than a Rhea versus Ronda match.
Yeah.
So they had to do what they had to do.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah. And,
basically, I think knowing Charlotte and seeing her over the last 8 years or whatever, Charlotte will go heel as soon as she loses that title. Her brain will flick and she'll go heel because she can't live without that title. She can't be her without the title. The title is almost like what makes her, and when she doesn't have the title, she's nothing. So I think she's gonna flip and she'll go heel right away as soon as she loses.
Yeah, I wonder if then do you do a rematch at Backlash in Puerto Rico? But then you have heel versus heel, and I know that they've done it before.
They've done it before. I think they're gonna give it to someone new, like a new.
Hopefully, Zelina. That'd be cool.
Yeah, Zelina might get a chance because they've been feuding a little bit. Zelina might get a chance.
They lost to her, but in a tag match, not in a one-on-one match. But I'm just thinking because it's in Puerto Rico, right? So they'll probably do Zelina, and I imagine they'll do Damian versus Theory or something like that, right? Because Theory's probably going to turn face at some point. You'd think after beating Cena.
I think he turns face at WrestleMania. I think he'll likely beat Cena. Cena will give him props. He'll shake his hand. They'll hug. Cena will hold his hand up like this, and he'll point to Theory, saying, he is the guy, and kind of like how The Rock did for Cena years ago. He held up Cena's hand, and he really kind of held passing of the torch. So Cena gets to do it, and I think Cena's done at this point. I don't foresee him with his movie career really doing much more wrestling at this point.
Yeah, he doesn't want to get hurt.
He doesn't want to get hurt. He'll be in WWE. He'll do like appearances here and there, but I can't foresee him doing much wrestling. And why have him win the U.S. title? It doesn't really make a lot of sense, right? So
no.
Yeah,
and they want to put Theory, right?
I think we're going to see a lot of turns at WrestleMania, and I think it makes sense. I think it's the right time to make some turns now. Who I would love to see heel turn, because I want to see how she does it, Bianca. I want to see how she can be a heel.
I don't think she wants to be, though.
I really want to see if she can do it. That's the main thing. She's done such good work as a face, but I want to see what she can do as a heel.
I want to see it too, but I think it's in the same. And she's actually said this to herself. I think it's in the same vein as their hesitancy to turn Cena heel. I'm not saying she's John Cena. Please don't jump on me. But like she has been such a good face. And I shouldn't take credit for this. This is Bianca's word, not mine. But I agree with her. And like you got to be careful with that, right? Because like she has been seen as this like role model, and she like is very much a face, right? So I think there's some hesitancy on her end to do that.
They did it with Bailey. Bailey was
yeah.
the biggest face in the company, and they switched her to.
But
a heel.
I'd say on the flip side, I'd like to see it a little bit.
I would like to see it.
I think it'd be a cool, just because she is so powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like look at Rhea, for example. Look at how much her star has grown since turning heel on Liv when they were a tag team.
I just feel like if you can do it, if you have the ability to work as a heel, you just really balance out your character. You really are able to show that you can work both sides of the ring, and I think that's so good long term because you can have somebody who can work both sides. It's so good for the WWE if they can do that. Because I know
gotta get the belt off her first.
Sorry.
Gotta get the belt off her first.
Yeah, you do.
I don't know if that's happening at Mania.
I don't know if it's happening at Mania either. I actually have my really high doubts on this match. And the weird thing is talking about heels and face. What is Asuka? Like she's coming across to me as like not a pure heel, not a pure face, but neither kind of. She doesn't. Really
I'm wondering if this is another one where they've been waiting, and then this coming week we'll start to see it, because even Bianca has said out last Monday after she was tagged with Asuka, she's like, I don't want this tag match. What the hell? Right. So, and it reminds me of, they had right before the Elimination Chamber, they had the 3 Raw women versus the 3 SmackDown women in that 6-person tag match.
Yeah.
And then Asuka just destroyed everybody. So I can sort of see that happen where like like she's making it look like she's aligned with Bianca, and then all of a sudden we'll just kick the crap out of her.
Oh, for
which
sure.
is what I want to see. Like Asuka is a heel. That's the whole point of her character.
That's why
right?
her character is there.
Right. And so I'm hoping that's what happens. Like he'll sort of in that match on Monday, she'll make it seem like she's not going to do anything, and then at the opportune time beat the crap out of Bianca. Right? Because that's why they had Charlotte and Rhea feud on Friday, right? And probably one of the slowest brawls I think I've ever seen in my life. I don't understand why it was so slow. I'm like, you two have been doing this for a while. Anyways, it was so slow. I'm like, okay, beat the crap out of each other. Like, what's all this like? Anyways, like even the security weren't near you. Sorry, it was just a weird brawl. But yeah, we need more of that, right? Like, I mean, like even Asuka, like not Asuka, even Alexa, like got a massive, like huge bump on Bianca, like made her bleed and gave her stitches, right? Like that build can't be better than what Bianca's going to be facing at WrestleMania. That's your biggest event, right?
No. And if I remember, Bianca won the title at WrestleMania last year against Becky, right? She won the titles off Becky last year.
I think so.
That sounds right. She's held it for a year. She's been the longest reigning women's champion for a while.
She's the longest reigning black champion,
correct,
in WWE history, or black women's champion.
Women's champion, maybe even black champion in general. Actually, to be honest, that might be the case.
So she's got that accolade now, right?
She's got lots of accolades, and you know what? Like she's really held her own. She's really run that roster really well. She's really showed well as a champion. You just need a little change it up. Just a little change up. I want to see her win more titles. I'm 100% down to see her win more titles in the future. Absolutely. I want to see her heel work is one thing, but just the way where they built up WrestleMania. This is another slow build, right? This is another slow build between these two. But I don't know. I'm not compelled enough to think Asuka's winning this match. I don't know.
I'm interested in how we're gonna feel in the next time we record, because we usually record once a week. Like next time we record, I'm kind of curious how we're gonna feel for some of these builds, because like we got the hug on Friday, which again I told you how much I laughed about that, because like everyone was like, yeah, you're friends again, even though in real life you're friends. This like they got like a massive pop for that, right? Which I thought was hilarious. Of course, then there's Cody in the back, like a proud papa. Yeah. Oh, look at you two! Look at you two hugging. Look what I did.
So you imagine Cody's coming out on Monday. Roman's there, right?
Roman's face again,
and Roman's gonna go face to face, but this time we've already seen them face to face, 1-on-1. Everybody left the ring. We've already seen that. So this time Roman will have his crew behind him. He'll have the bloodline behind him. This time I believe Sammy and KO are coming out behind
with them.
Cody.
But we also haven't seen Roman and Jay come face to face yet either.
We have not, which I also think is quite interesting. But I mean, they're not really building that up quite yet. I think there's too much. It's tough.
You know, I have to say though, you know, for long term, because we know H is a long term storyteller. You add Elimination Chamber when Jay was in the ring and he had that look at Roman with his back to him with the chair. I think that was a foreshadow for what's going to happen at Mania. I think
so you think it's going to happen at Mania? You think it's going to happen at Mania? Huh?
I do think he's going to hit him with the chair.
I also do think when we saw Jay and Sammy confront each other on Friday night, right? Before Jay attacked Sammy, there was some confliction there. There was some.
Well,
you were a brother to me. Like he said that. He said you were my brother. What the hell else was I supposed to do? I didn't have no choice, right? He's still feeling gripped by Roman. I don't have no choice. So he's almost telling the story that I didn't really want to attack Sammy. I didn't really want to do it, but I felt compelled to do it.
He said that multiple times. He has not once yet said Roman's name since returning to the bloodline, quote unquote. He said basically, I really had no choice. I have to protect my brother.
He also said the only reason he came back really
was to protect Jimmy.
To protect Jimmy. He really talked about Jimmy only.
Before he attacked Sammy, Sammy said, "You're just mad because I had hit him with the chair before you did." Jay did not deny that.
He didn't like that either.
Right? But he didn't deny it, right? So that's why it'll be interesting to see how if he's planning on turning on Roman at some point, how he's going to mask that. Because as we know, Jay is a hothead, and it's hard for him to be deceitful, and not be like, you know, he wears his heart in his sleeve. That's his character, right? It'll be interesting to see how because Roman's obviously going to go right to him and say, like, what the hell, man? Like, you need to answer for what you did.
For sure. And I almost feel like Jay's going to play up this, I'm part of the bloodline. I'm good. Like, we're good. Like, you good? I'm good.
You.
I acknowledge you. All that stuff's going to happen. But, you know, we're anticipating, we're just kind of educated guess here that he's going to turn on WrestleMania. We don't know, but I think when the turn happens, when that chair shot happens, it's going to come as a surprise when we don't expect it. It's going to be something where we really don't expect it, and
you're going to get you remember how that they got the pop when Sammy hit Roman. You're going to get probably equal, maybe even more pop. If he hits him with that chair,
a lot of people have wanted this for a long time, right? And I think I think that chair shot, as soon as that chair hits the back and it comes from someone else in the bloodline, like even if the story went to Solo doing it, or if it was Jimmy doing it, if Roman gets hit by any member of the bloodline, that is the signal moment that shows the bloodline's over. It's done.
Over,
right?
Absolutely, because that's the consistent theme, is that the bloodline has always been there to help Roman win.
And just like the Shield crumbled, the bloodline will crumble the same way. And I think that's really showing that people can't trust Roman, right?
Which also, like, for Roman, it's just like, it makes sense why he liked the way he is, eh?
It does.
Everyone he trusts just ends up turning on him.
But you know how this is gonna go. Roman is gonna get hit by Jay, I almost feel like Jimmy and Solo will still turn on Jay. Like, they'll still turn on him. I think they'll still be aligning themselves with Roman for a little bit. And then Roman and Jay will face off at some point, whether that's SummerSlam or Backlash. And Jay will end up coming out on top. I think Jay will win. I personally feel like it has to happen. Jay's got to go on a singles run.
Yeah, no, I agree, and
I think so.
And that's the story I want to see after Mania, but without the belts.
Without the belts,
and it's such a good story that you can have. So that's the thing. You can have Cody on TV on Raw with the belts, right? And then Raw's got his top belt back. You can have him on SmackDown if you want to, right? And he can feud with somebody else, right? And you'll have that, and then you can have the Bloodline story. Then you have two extremely compelling. You have a very compelling champion who you can tell two different stories with on two different television shows, and then you have the Bloodline story, right? So you go from having one story that dominates both brands to two compelling stories that people will tune into over and over and over again.
So let's take a full circle all the way back to the beginning of the podcast. Speaking about what we just spoke about and everything that should happen, not necessarily will, but should, does that not ultimately mean Cody would win?
I don't know.
To me, it does. Because you're not gonna have Jay turn on a champion Roman. It doesn't make sense. To me, those championships on Roman are almost, when he holds those titles over his shoulders, it's almost like his armor. Do you know what I mean? And if he takes those titles away from him, his armor's gone. He's weak. Yeah. He's lost. He's also in a vulnerable state, right? He's lost the titles for the first time and he can remember. So that's the opportune time that Jay will turn on him, when he loses those titles. Now, if he keeps the titles at WrestleMania, Jay won't turn on him. That's how I look at it.
Or they'll long play it.
Yeah, they'll long play it. Jay will turn on him at SummerSlam or something later on.
Something like that.
If he does lose the titles, then Jay will turn on him. It'll happen.
That'll be fantastic.
That's how I look at it. I think that to me, it really makes sense that Jay turns on him at WrestleMania, because that means Jay will probably face him later, like SummerSlam or something.
Well, it's just where you do it. It's the biggest show of the year. So
you got to do it.
Have
it's
the biggest
pop,
stories.
The biggest pop.
You'll
the
get,
biggest amount
right?
of people. You got 100,000 people that are going to come in and watch this. You got millions of people watching it, to the millions and millions. Now here's the kicker. I'm going to ask you a question. One question.
Oh no.
I'm going to finish this off. We've talked about someone in wrestling for many, many times. Not Roman, but we've talked about somebody many, many times. Get brought up in our minds many times. Fans are anticipating this. It's been happening for a while. Does Dwayne Johnson show up at WrestleMania? I don't think he's wrestling. He's definitely not wrestling. But does the guy make an appearance? Does he make an appearance in Hollywood? Does it make sense to bring him in at this point?
Where? That's the thing, is where would you put him?
Even if it has nothing to do with the bloodline. Even if it's like he comes in just to kind of hoorah the crowd. Does he come in? Does he come in? If he does, and he does hoorah the crowd in the beginning, and it's like, oh yeah, The Rock's here, it's Hollywood, da 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 da. You know, The Rock's on the red carpet, blah blah blah, something like that. You know, a lot of fans would be happy with that. I think they doesn't need to wrestle. But in that point, do you even have him get involved with Jay? I don't know.
I think if you have the Rock there in any capacity, you're going to muddle too much, because people are gonna be like, right, and then I think it would affect any kind of storyline you're going to tell at WrestleMania. I think it's too dangerous.
It's fair.
Right now, if he does NXT Stand and Deliver and does something with his daughter, okay, I'm okay with that.
That's fine too.
Right. I don't know what the plan is for Stand and Deliver, but I'd be okay with him somehow putting over his daughter.
Yeah.
If he was on the main roster, then yeah, I would be like, okay, I can see him sort of being involved in that sense. But I think with just what's going on right now, I don't think it would make sense. I think he would muddy too much of the story, because people would be like, oh, and where's The Rock? Because like, look what happened with Royal Rumble, right? People thought he was going to be there. And confirm or deny, like, if there's rumors are out there, he was supposed to be there, right?
Too much on that.
And it ruined the feeling of a little bit of Cody winning, right? Because people were like, oh, where's The Rock? Where's Stone Cold, right? So I think that would be the thing. Now, WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia, I think he's there in some capacity. It's WrestleMania 40.
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that, because it's like you have two compelling reasons. You have being in Hollywood, 100% makes sense for him to be there. It does. However, they missed their opportunity to have him against the Bloodline.
Yeah.
Now, I almost feel like WrestleMania 40. Yeah, he's got to be there because it's WrestleMania 40. Stone Cold's got to be there. Undertaker's got to be there, at least in some sort of capacity. However, if he's there at WrestleMania 40, is too delayed from Roman and him, and there's just too, because I don't, the Bloodline's not really going to be together at WrestleMania 40. Roman's kind of going to be a little bit less relevant at that point. I'm
he'll
assuming
probably slowly go less and
he'll
less.
slowly
on
go
TV,
less
yeah.
and less, and he may even start getting heavier and heavier into acting because I know that's what he wants to do. So at that point, does it become a missed opportunity for Rock and Roman? I do feel like
Maybe.
it could. Maybe we
for
see
Rock and Roman,
Rock
for sure.
and Stone Cold again at WrestleMania.
Maybe,
40. No, I'm just
or
joking.
my hope is maybe it's Ava. Maybe that's when he has like a mixed tag match with Ava versus someone, right?
That would be cool.
So it'd be interesting to see. But we'll stop there because we think we've dove into quite a few interesting topics, and I think it's going to be interesting to see the build now, since they're starting to show some signs of ramping stuff up with KO and Sammy being aligned, right? So like I said, Charlotte and Rhea sort of ramp things up. So it'll be interesting to see how they're going to ramp everything up, coming close to 2 weeks away from WrestleMania. So it'll be really interesting to see how things are going to shape up. So thanks for watching, everyone. Please subscribe on our YouTube, listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And as I always say, my beautifully bearded friend, thanks so much for watching.
Thanks,
For
Jeff.
chatting with me.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, everybody, and we're excited to catch you the next one.